Some of you may have seen my previous video talking about the largest fund manager in the world, BlackRock, taking its biggest, baddest, and probably most important ETF in the marketplace right now on the planet, tokenizing it, and then making it available to trade through a decentralized platform that is Uniswap. Now, I've had a lot of questions and comments really asking me to shed some light and bring some context as to what this can potentially mean, not just for the projects that we're into, but the wider crypto landscape. And so I hope this video helps shed a little bit of light. And to be quite honest with you, it's going to be very, very difficult for me to overstate the monumental impact this can have. Some of you may know my background in traditional finance. Since this news came out, I have been in contact with a lot of my network who are still working at some of the largest traditional finance institutions in the world. And let me tell you, the traditional finance world is being shaken right now. A lot of fund managers in particular seem to be wanting to jump into this with both feet, as they should. So, what does this mean essentially for crypto as a whole? Well, if you look at the world's assets, the majority of assets, and I'm not just talking about stocks and ETFs, I'm talking about commodities like gold, silver, nickel. I'm talking about real estate, both huge real estate projects and companies down to the smallest real estate projects. I'm talking about private companies or public companies, companies that have their own IP, their own technology, their own assets that they now are able to tokenize and offer for investment to pretty much anyone on the planet. No longer do you have to be an accredited investor to get involved in some of this investment vehicle. No longer do you have to be based in certain geographic locations. This allows for a much wider footprint in terms of who is able to invest in some of these new tokenized finance vehicles and offers up the ability for some of the best investments in the world, the most lucrative, to be taken advantage of by everyday retail investors. So, what we should see, and to me, the writing is very much on the wall. I am not a financial advisor, of course, but sometimes the writing is on the wall and everything is leading to a parabolic next bull cycle because we have so much interest, so much new economic energy being pushed and guided and forced into crypto, into DeFi in particular, that it would be almost impossible for that not to matriculate through the whole crypto landscape, and we should see all around a much more prolific bull cycle than we ever have before. Now, this is very bullish, but again, if I see the writing on the wall, I'm not going to be afraid to be bullish about this stuff. It's actually blowing my mind that I seem to be the only person talking about this right now. And yes, it could be due to the close links that I have in the traditional finance world, which allow me to put a little bit more trust and experience behind what I'm telling you. But I still think this, even for the most tactless person, the most unsavvy investor, seems like an opportunity that we cannot miss. Now, when I'm analyzing the market going forward, for me, a large part of my investment ethos really goes into how much runway certain projects and ecosystems have. Something like an Ethereum, for instance, which is quote unquote somewhat of a safe investment in the crypto world. It has the gravitas of a brand that's been around for a while. It has the tenure in the space, and it's the most widely used blockchain on the planet, which would seem that it's a pretty safe investment in terms of crypto speculation. I would be looking, or I have notoriously looked at the diminishing returns that we could potentially see going forward. We've already seen some huge returns from Ethereum. And so going forward, I would place in this next bull cycle something around a 5 or a 10x if we hold true to what we've seen in the past. Now, just based on the fact that this blockchain in particular has some of the widest applications and are the most well known, throughout the world, we should see a lot of this new economic energy pouring into Ethereum, pouring into Uniswap. And so these two are starting to look like very tasty investment opportunities to me. That law of diminishing returns may not be going down the same track as expected. We could see a lot more price movement potential, certainly in Ethereum, certainly in Uniswap. And so that looks like a much more opportune investment opportunity to myself. Now, if I'm looking forward and seeing exactly what other types of opportunities there are, a new vertically integrated ecosystem based primarily in the DeFi world, that is the Richard Heart ecosystem, pulsechain, Hex, pulsex. This looks to be now the perfect investment vehicle. It hasn't come to fruition yet. And so it's still going to be the shiny new kid on the block. We have a litmus test behind us in Hex that has done extremely well, that has turned even the most pessimistic people in the past into at least somewhat believers in the ecosystem, let alone the huge community of us that truly believe and have a vision for where we think this ecosystem is likely to go. Do you think that new products, new assets, regardless of which asset realm they're coming from, are not going to analyze this DeFi realm, realize that if they invest or if they utilize platforms like pulsechain and pulsex to make their projects more attainable to the public, they're not going to want to make it faster, easier to control, and cheaper to do so? They absolutely will. And so, what I imagine seeing, and again, I'm not a financial advisor or even a Nostradamus, but looking forward to seeing how I think that this ecosystem is going to be leveraged going forward. As we come out of the gates, I see a lot of interest being focused directly into this ecosystem, meaning that as we start to adhere to the traditional cycles, the traditional bull and bear cycles, I really think, and this is probably jumping on a little bit from some of my previous thought process, where we have a chance of launching this new ecosystem in its entirety, seeing that initial rise in interest from the community alone. But then as we would typically taper off and start going into bit more of a dip, let's say, before we get into the bull market in proper, I think that there is a significant chance that we don't adhere to that, that we continue on an incremental price increase until we reach the bull market proper, where we should see some parabolic growth, not just because of the ecosystem and the usual interest that we see through through these cycles, but now we have the potential of seeing some mass interest from some of the largest institutions in the world, a huge amount of economic energy, as I say, pouring in, really making the horizon something that none of us at this point would have envisioned. We were looking for a catalyst for a lot of this financial money to find its way into crypto. And this seems to be it. This seems to be a perfect scenario for anyone now vested in this ecosystem. DeFi in particular is going to see a huge amount of price performance, a lot of interest going forward. But for a new vertically integrated ecosystem, and I keep saying it, this could go to unprecedented levels. And I think that even if you didn't get into the sacrifices for pulsex or pulse chain, I don't think that matters so much anymore. If you are in, as soon as possible, or even dollar cost averaging for the first couple of months, there is a lot of runway available here. Not just again from the community that's already interested, but the longer the ecosystem is in existence, the more interest and the more trust it's going to build with some of these outside investors. So this no longer becomes, or it significantly cuts back on the scenario where we have that initial interest and then a dip following it. This really sets us up nicely to continue gaining momentum, continue pulling a lot of the market share, not just from Ethereum and Uniswap, but from the stock market, from other asset classes. This hope just opened up a whole new world of value, a whole new world of returns. And so I hope this sheds some light into how excited we should be. As always, this video is straight to stream. I haven't edited this. I am just giving you a stream of consciousness right now. So forgive me if it's not as polished as you would like. But listen, I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on this whole scenario going forward. I am going to be in pretty close conversations with a lot of my network, and I'm going to be keeping you apprised of what other things we should start seeing or planning for coming down the pike. As I mentioned before, there are going to be a lot of investment opportunities that come with this. I think the platforms that start really gearing themselves around streamlining that tokenization are going to be one of the new biggest areas of crypto going into this next bull cycle, even the bull cycles afterward. And so I'm going to keep a close eye and an ear to the grindstone in what kind of leaps forward we're seeing in that realm, so that we can be the first ones to get into some of these projects and really start setting ourselves up for success. But right now, and I'm assuming if you're watching this channel so far, that it has been very, very focused on the Richard Heart ecosystem over the last couple of weeks, you're already in or planning to get into probably the best opportunity for financial wealth that we're going to see in generations. This truly is a revolution at its finest. And we have just unhinged a catalyst, a new revenue stream, a new highway of traditional financial interest that should be flooding the markets going forward. So again, do not underestimate and start planning now. If I was someone who didn't have any disposable income right now, I would be finding that part-time job. I'd be finding ways to really add to my income, however that may be, just so I don't miss this opportunity, because it's not going to take a lot of money to see some very big returns hopefully coming up. You don't need to be already financially sound to start really leveraging, these opportunities ahead. These are the exact moments in time where you hear about people leveraging very small amounts of money into life-changing wealth. Don't underestimate this. Don't sit on this, and stay tuned. I'll be back with you with more information, of course. Please do subscribe, hit the notification, and also follow me on Twitter. Love to see some of the engagement I'm seeing there. And I'm very, very appreciative of all the comments and all the real great feedback I've seen going forward. It's been very motivating. And so I hope this has helped, and I'll continue to try to bring as much value as I can going forward. Thank you.